Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order with the first order of business being the approval of the minutes from October 27th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been
So moved.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Um, We're now going to turn the remainder of the agenda over to Ms. Rogers.
Thank you very much. So the next item is the security transaction report, and it covers the period October 20th to November 7th, 2025.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay, let me start
And
again.
Tilt it down a little bit, there you go.
Okay, thank you. The security transactions covering the period from October 20th, 25 to November the 7th. It's a very short report. So we have total purchases of $105 million and total redemptions of $200 million. And just to note that we are fully, as far as our cash flow, we are, our investments are projected out to December, so we're covered for December, and we're funding January forward. We expect income taxes to come in at the end of the year, as well as the property tax will start coming in.
Thank you. We've heard the report. Is there a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the value, market value for the our swap portfolio, and this is as of October 31st, 2025. The value is $8,822,324. There was a slight dip in the 10-year Treasury from 416 in September to 411, which shows just a slight elevation in the market value compared to the month prior. But there's nothing really interesting on here. We do have, we changed swap advisors, and they are looking at considering what we can do with the the $71 million that's unhedged right now. So hopefully we can come up with something to unwind it.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, the next item of business is presenting the 2026 loan authorization program. The board is hereby requested to consider and endorse the 2026 loan authorization program, which totals $280 million in general obligation bonds. The charter requires that the Board of Finance provide recommendations to the Board of Estimates on the loan authorization program. Planning is responsible for administering this program, has recommended $140 million in FY '28 and FY '29. Once this is approved, it goes on the November 26th general election ballot and seeking approval from the citizens of Baltimore. And if it's approved, then it's incorporated into our capital improvement program. Of course, the general obligation bond, the city places full faith and credit and taxing power on these obligations. Under our last policy, you all approved $125 million in FY '26 and FY '27 for the maximum amount of money we can budget for our capital improvement program. I have Ms. Sarah Palermo here to give the rest of the presentation on the 2026 loan authorization program.
Thank you. I think you're going to get some slides, unfortunately, in black and white. I apologize you don't have the color version, but just imagine.
I appreciate planning's willingness to cut costs wherever possible.
We sent it in color. Electronically.
We will chalk this up to technical difficulties.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Parnillum. I'm the Division Chief for Policy and Data Analysis within the Planning Department. And as As Ms. Rogers said, we're here today to discuss the loan authorization for FY '28 and '29, which will be on the ballot in calendar year '26. So it's a confusing set of numbers there. But what you're looking at is the amount of general obligation bonds that are in the FY '26 budget, just for context, to show that the general obligation bonds are a critical component of the overall capital improvement program. So in FY '26, as was mentioned, it was $125 million, which for that particular year was about 14%. But these are one of our most flexible fund sources that we have available for capital. Most of the other sources that you're seeing in that pie chart are restricted in one way or another. And so these are needed for all of the projects that do not have other resources available. So if we go to the next, so the process for approving the loan authorization began with Planning Commission last month. They approved the recommendations that are before this body today, and then following review by the Board of Finance, it'll go to the Board of Estimates in December. And the reason for this process starting almost a full year before we go to the voters next November is because there is a requirement for the Baltimore delegation in Annapolis to approve the recommended loan authorization. That needs to happen within, I think, the first 30 days of the session in Annapolis. And so in order to make that happen, we have these approvals that happen in the prior fall. After being approved by the Baltimore delegation in January, it will go to the City Council in the spring, and then ultimately to the voters in November. This one might be a little bit hard without color, but this is showing you the trends for the loan authorization going all the way back to 2006. So you can see kind of the totals increasing in recent years. So for many years, we had a relatively flat amount of general obligation bonds, but we're really making an effort in partnership with finance to invest in our underinvested capital infrastructure. And so you can see the 2024 loan authorization was a significant increase from the prior ones, and then we're continuing with kind of incremental increases over the next several loan authorizations until we reach a level, I think, of $200 million a year is the goal. And what may be harder to see without the colors is the breakdown by question, but we will look at that on the next slide. So here you can see a comparison of the 2022 loan authorization, the 2024 loan authorization, and the proposed loan authorization, the programmed loan authorization for 2026. All of these are for 2 years. We go to the voters every 2 years. So these amounts are double what you would see in any individual capital budget. But we have 4 questions that go before the voters in recent years: affordable housing, schools, community and economic development, and public infrastructure. You'll see that the programmed amount for community and economic development was lower for the 2026 loan authorization. We expected that there might be other sources that were coming online for some of the vacancy initiative, and now we're reevaluating that, as you'll see in the coming slides.
Question? You can go first.
So when you say you're reevaluating that, does that mean this can still change?
Yes, what we're proposing for you is different from what is programmed. So when I say
Okay.
programmed, that's what was in last year's 6-year capital improvement program.
Right.
The amounts for the various loan questions.
Okay.
And once we go through this approval process, we will not be able to change it. But what we're proposing for this approval process is different from what was in last year's 6-year program.
Let me ask a more nuanced question, which
Yes.
is, at this level anyway, I guess the answer might be different for some of the others, but I thought the Board of Finance just approved ceilings for you. Are we approving how much in these individual categories also?
Yes, there are
Oh.
ceilings per category.
Okay,
Oh, I thought we just approved the.
Yeah.
No, it's per category, because
Okay.
that's what's ultimately going to go on the ballot. So those are ceilings per category.
can we approve ceilings per category and an overall ceiling?
The overall is the sum of the per category.
Well, not necessarily. The overall ceiling is the sum of the individual allocations, but not necessarily the sum of the ceiling of the individual applications. Like, we could say, for example, that you can't spend more than 175 million on any one category, and you can't spend more than 280 total.
The way that it goes to voters is 4 separate questions.
Right. And my question is, I guess what I'm curious about is, how far can you go before you have to be certain about how much is in each category, or is this it?
I believe this is it.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I
Hear from the law
understand
department.
that last question. Whatever the bond bill says
Yeah.
is the cap on that particular category.
Do you want to come up from
Yeah.
the?
So it depends on what the bond bill actually says. If for community and economic development, you authorize a grand total of $100 million, just to make up a number, that's it
That's
for
it.
that.
We can't, and so
You
you're
can't
saying,
move things around.
and so you're saying that we could not authorize up to 100 million?
Yes, that's what you do.
That's
That's exactly what you do.
okay, but we
You do not
couldn't,
have to spend 100 million.
can we authorize up to 100 million for affordable housing, schools, and community and economic development
Each.
each?
But you can't move them around. You can't say, if we don't want to use them, if we don't want to use all of our
100
community
million
and
here,
economic,
we're
we
gonna
were
use
going
some
to
of that.
shift it into
Okay.
a different category.
Okay,
So each authorization is sort of an entity unto itself.
okay.
And you issue, it says you're authorized to issue up to X dollars.
So are these numbers on this chart right here what you're actually asking for?
On slide 5, no.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so where's the numbers that you're?
We're gonna get there.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
This is the comparison from the 3 years.
We're
or the
just
3
showing,
cents.
that's just to show you the context of what was programmed, because we start the process by looking at the last thing that was approved. So that was what was in the 6-year program, but that is not what we're recommending to you today.
Okay.
And in a couple more slides, I'll show you that.
Okay,
We don't have those other 2 slides.
You don't have the rest of the slides?
yeah, see, that's the last slide that we got in our packet.
Yeah, so,
Well, there's the confusion.
Well,
There
okay.
are more slides. And maybe the slide you have doesn't say programmed, maybe it says proposed.
That's the last slide we,
It cut off.
yeah, that's the last slide we have. So that's, hence my concern.
Yes, no wonder.
just trying to send it, but,
Can I log on to WebEx and share from here?
can you try?
I can try.
I don't think anyone here is empowered to stop you from doing that.
Maybe someone in
Did you ever
control.
get a chance to ask your question?
It was on the same
Oh.
line, and because I wanted to go
Actually,
directly
where is your
towards
agenda? Like, where would I get the WebEx link?
economic development.
Yeah.
It would be on the Board of
I
Finance,
just
too.
don't know.
WebEx link on the Board of Finance.
But when she started talking about, she had more information, I thought I could wait. Yeah.
Meeting
Should we
schedule.
recess briefly?
Yeah, it may take me a couple
Okay.
minutes.
So,
Move to recess.
So-
Second.
so while you're doing that, can we continue with another item?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's a
Okay.
better idea.
Here for agenda.
No, that's the agenda, click here.
okay. Instead, you want to move
That's-
on and actually keep that
Correct.
work done?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're there.
We're very close.
Okay.
you might have to make me a,
Host.
oops, I gotta turn off my sound. A presenter, yeah. Can you make me a panelist? Or a host, whatever one I need to be able to share? Aha. Perfect. All right.
Oh, color.
All right.
Color, all of the slides.
So that's where that was the last
That's
thing
where we left off. All right, so, so let's talk about some of the challenges that we face. So, in order to increase the borrowing, we need to identify an additional source of funds. So I mentioned that the goal was to incrementally increase the bond levels with each loan authorization, but we have not yet identified that source of funds, so that's one challenge. The next challenge is that the loan authorization is several years in the future. So we're sitting here in 2025 trying to plan for fiscal years 28 and 29, and there's decisions that have to be made to the conversation, with the law department. We can't move things around once these decisions are made, but there are several unknowns as we're looking at the future for FY 28 and 29. First is we don't know what will happen with highway user revenue. So currently, highway user revenue is going to plummet unless there are changes made in Annapolis and for fiscal year 28. And so we need to be thinking about kind of how we're ready to make adjustments depending on what happens with highway user revenue. The second thing is we don't know the allocation for any particular year for state funds for the Vacants Initiative. So each year that decision is made kind of in real time of how much of that is going to come to the city, how much of that is going to go to community-based organizations or the Maryland Stadium Authority. So again, it makes it difficult to kind of plan ahead for fiscal years 28 and 29. We also have significant infrastructure projects that are currently programmed that we need to move forward with, but we want to increase the amount for community and economic development from what was programmed previously. So we're trying to figure out a way to structure the loan authorization to provide flexibility without breaking kind of the way that it legally works, as the law department explained. And so the traditional approach has been to have the community and economic development bonds support 3 of our agencies, the Department of Housing and Community Development, Baltimore Development Corporation, and the mayoralty, and the public infrastructure bonds to support Department of General Services, Recreation and Parks, Solid Waste, and as needed, the Department of Transportation.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
When you say the mayoralty, as if it's its own agency that spends community and economic development funds, in what way are you envisioning
we have,
that?
for example, we provide $1 million a year to cultural institutions, and those are budgeted in mayoralty.
And
and
we
they're-
provide the money to the cultural institutions to do capital work?
Correct.
So I gotcha.
Correct.
And that's considered community and economic development and not public infrastructure?
Those are the flavor of bonds that we have been using in the past, is community economic development bonds for those cultural institutions.
Okay, even though technically,
You
In-
are making my point for me. So
That-
our
yeah.
proposed approach
Okay.
is to really blend these and find the intersection. So we have traditionally kind of segregated the use of these loan authorizations by agency, but what we're proposing to do in the future is to consider that there are many different uses that really are at the intersection of community and economic development and public infrastructure. And for those uses, we could use either bonds. So we don't have to think of it
Your layer wants to
I
talk.
was just going to say, as a historic note, when I first got here, I noted that we had individual bond authorizations, not in like 2 or 3 or 4 categories, but there was the Walters Art Museum
Yeah.
authorization.
Yeah.
So I think
You
what
used
we're.
to vote for those individually.
Exactly. So I guess my point is, we are moving away from, the Enoch Pratt Library loan or the schools loan and the Walters Art Museum loan and a different loan authorization for the Baltimore Museum of Art, and we're moving into increasingly limited number of categories. So you're just sort of blending them together more. Whether that's a good idea or not,
Yeah, so we're going to keep both categories, but there are uses that we could fund out of either category. And we're asking the law department to help us write the language so that that's clear.
So you would add cultural institutions to that list that you just showed?
Yeah, that could, right.
Okay.
I didn't have that one listed, but that's
Yeah,
an excellent example, yes.
Okay.
So the proposal is to increase the amount for the community and economic development loan above what was programmed to match the prior loan authorization for community and economic development. And this provides us with flexibility, depending on what our needs are for the Vacants Initiative, for public infrastructure. And we would just make sure that all of the loan questions were written in such a way that they weren't agency-specific, but that they allowed for kind of that crossover as things are at the intersection between those two. So here you can see, yes.
And question, I'm not sure if this is a planning department question, but I'll ask it. Are all of those cultural institutions that we do bond money for, are all of them actually owned by the city?
They're not. They're a mix.
Okay, because I was like, I know some of them, the actual land
Yes,
is.
there are quite a few
is
that
the
are,
city.
but there are some that are not.
But some of those nonprofit cultural institutions are privately owned.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
And this is the slide I was looking for.
Here you go. And I'm sorry about the mix-up, but yes, so this shows you what we're proposing in that column all the way to the right, and you can compare it to what was programmed,
Yeah.
both
Okay.
in the prior 2 loan authorizations as well as, previously proposed for 26. So you can see that the total is still 280 million, but the breakdown between community and economic development and public infrastructure has been adjusted. And so then this is just showing you kind of, if we annualize that, how much it would be each year for the various loan questions. And then we can just quickly, look at what the eligible uses is for each of the loan questions. So for affordable housing, the eligible uses would include acquisition, preservation, production of new housing, demolition, rental assistance, housing counseling, project finance, for a total of 22 million over 2 years.
And all of that can be used for the Vacants Initiative.
For the Vacants Initiative, to the extent that it's for affordable housing.
Right, but I'm sorry, maybe I'm misremembering. I thought a lot, if not
I'm not an expert on the Vacants Initiative, so I'm not
most of it,
sure.
is expected to be affordable.
Of nearly all of
Yeah.
the vacants work is going to be
Yeah.
classified as affordable.
Okay.
Some of that goes to the housing, Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Okay.
And so, that has its kind of own rules and how that intersects with the Vacants Initiative. I'm not an
Okay.
expert on,
Okay.
but yes, in theory.
Okay.
And then there's 60 million over 2 years for schools. So this complements the 21st Century Schools Building Initiative, is used for both systemic improvements at schools that didn't get replaced through that initiative, as well as some additional large construction projects. And I think, the board just recently looked at the school CIP. And then we have 50 million over 2 years for community and economic development. And so here you see kind of the traditional community and economic development of acquisition, demolition, relocation, home ownership. And then we're making sure to include language for public infrastructure that supports community and economic development goals. And then lastly, we have public infrastructure, 148 million over 2 years. And this is really everything else kind of within the city, right? So our parks, our playgrounds, athletic courts, rec centers, libraries, all of the fire stations, police stations, all of the infrastructure, the building that we're in now would be improved through the public infrastructure loan. And these are generally things that don't have access to any other source of funds. So for schools, there's access to state funds that complement the city funds. For community and economic development, there's both federal and state funds that complement that. For most of our public infrastructure, with the exception of recreation and parks, there's really no other source of funds, so this is critical. And that's what I have for you. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Yeah, I have some questions.
Yes?
There's a paragraph in here that intrigued me. It said the loan authorization is a point in the CIP process where the commission may wish to consider transgenerational equity, but you're not, are you considering it or not considering it?
So because
I
this
mean,
is,
you spent, well, a fairly full explanation of what it is. So is it, do we consider it or don't we consider it?
yes, so the loan authorization is allowing us to issue debt to fund capital projects. And when we identify the specific capital projects, we want to be conscious of the fact that we're funding them out of debt and making sure that they have a 20-year lifespan, that it's not something that we're making an investment that only serves today's population, but that will also serve the populations that are helping to pay for that investment over the next 20 years. So the loan authorization kind of sets the stage, but as we, in each capital budget, identify the specific projects.
So it is
where
considered?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Sorry if our language wasn't.
I have another question, but I think that maybe comes later when you talk about the compliance with the limits. Okay. Yep.
Yes.
We're just trying to make sure we can stop sharing.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I can stop. Good, thank you.
So I'd like to entertain a motion to endorse the 2026 loan authorization program totaling $280 million in GO. Is that correct?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved. Is there a second? And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passed.
Okay. Thank you. And the next item, you have an updated, it's just the action, the language in the action of what we're asking you to do. This is concerning the general obligation bonds borrowing level. And last year, we presented an update to the policy asking for an increase of $125 million for FY26. And we had determined after the study with Prague that we would review our borrowing levels annually and present it to the board. And just confirming, where we are with our debt ratios. So we're asking here that you would, again, to consider and approve confirming the assessment for FY27, setting the borrowing limit for $125 million. And then for 28, increasing it to $140 million. So we, when you look at the metrics that we have, we look at the 10-year GO bond payout ratio, the general fund balance to the general fund revenue, debt service compared to the full value of our properties, debt outstanding compared to the personal income, debt service and general fund, and also looking at our fixed costs as it compares to our outstanding debt. Right now, as far as our outstanding debt, we gave you the comparison from 22 to 26. We started out with $4.5 billion in 2022, and estimated for 2026, not including additional new issuance, is $4.1 billion. So at this point, like I'm saying, we're asking for an increase of 125 for fiscal year 27, affirming that, and then 28, 140 million. You had a question, or
I
you
do
want to
have a
go?
question.
Okay.
Shall I hold it?
You can go ahead.
No, okay. The bond payout ratio, the GO bond payout ratio, when we established our criteria, we said above 60%,
Correct.
correct? And we were comfortably over that in the fiscal years 23, 24, and 25. But as I look going forward, and what we're projecting is 28, 29, and 30, we are below that 60% threshold. So the first thing that occurs to me is, that's a fairly significant drop from 70% to 58%.
Okay,
And-
so,
And,
go ahead.
okay, and does that have any real impact? What is explaining this? I think I read the sentence that this can be easily managed. So tell me what that, tell me what
Okay.
that means. I'm always I always get a little nervous when someone says, well, there's a big variance, but it could be easily managed.
Right. So the significant, the reason why those percentages are higher, because technically for 3 years, we didn't issue bonds, right? So it's not incorporated in
Okay, so
the
that's why we're at
amortization.
70%.
Yes.
And 60 was perhaps unrealistic when we,
No, it's not unrealistic, but it's just that, normally we're around like, we're normally around like 71 of our payout, right? And so now we're down to 60 because we have increased it. And when, the reason why I say it's manageable, because when we go to issue, we control how much we issue.
Sure.
Right, so we have to pull back and say, okay, we can't right now afford $125 million. We budget 125, but if we can't afford to issue it, then we can decrease the amount that we,
okay,
and then we can look at how we structure it too, where we can front load it, where we're paying the principal down
okay.
faster.
Okay.
There's, if you don't mind,
Sure.
there is kind of a mathematical thing happening here. If you have $80 million a year that you're borrowing, and you keep borrowing 80, your bond ratio is going to stay about the same. You keep paying off old debt, you keep taking out
Yeah.
new debt, so it stays stable. If you borrow 200, it's actually the same thing. You borrow 200, you pay off 200, it stays stable.
But we're not doing that.
What happens when you go from 80 to 200, which is what we're doing during this period, is during the period of increase, your debt gets young for a little while. Your bonds kind of get front-loaded on being younger, and you sort of have to get over that hump, and mathematically, that's the only way of getting from a lower plateau to a higher plateau, is to get through this period of having a larger share of your debt being younger than you've historically had. And then it passes, but this chart won't show it because that'll be like 15 years out.
15. But if we go back to the page 2, and it shows us overall borrowing, in 26, our aggregate borrowings actually went down.
We were, as Ms. Rogers kind of pointed out, we were, for a while, we just had paused borrowing just overall. So even the 80 million that we had been authorized to borrow, we were low against that. So we were flat, and then sometimes we were even below flat.
So what you're suggesting is we're going to have a big bump in 27 and 28.
Not so much even in 27 and 28, but it's over the next 10 years as we slowly rise from the level we were at back in 24 to the level that we would like to get to by 2034. And this is why we're taking it kind of 2 years at a time and evaluating carefully every couple of years. Now, the advisors told us, Prague told us that this is something to monitor, and we certainly don't want to let these ratios get out of hand, but it's one of many factors. The more important factors are the reserves that we keep.
Sure.
And and these are also kind of at the extreme assumptions that we actually do borrow every dollar, of course, that we're authorized for. And of course, we always show the most extreme assumption when we put these together, because we want to sort of test the edge case. We will watch this very closely.
Please.
But absolutely, but that's the reason why we would drop at all. And with that being said, 60 is the recommended level. Around 60, Prague told us, is considered healthy, so just a little bit below 60 is still around the healthy range. It is something to continue watching closely. If we suddenly see a very precipitous drop, we should be mindful. At this time, we're not dropping as of yet. We will begin issuing more debt, and as that number begins moving, we'll be watching it.
Just remember, when the nose goes under the tent, it's very hard to get the whole creature out.
Absolutely. We will, of course, be then paying off the debt that we're taking on, and at some point, the tail catches up to the head.
Okay.
So-
Thank you. Thank you.
So Michael, with that explanation, what does rising interest rates do to that example that you just gave to Fred?
And that's a great question. I think that's maybe the kind of thing to watch out for, and the reason to watch these numbers is if we're in an environment where rates are rising and rising and rising without end, that is one reason to maybe have pause when we get to, let's say, considering a $200 million level, about whether or not we in fact want a $200 million level. Now, right now, we're at 140, and our ratios are not nearly so low. And interest rates, of course, right now are flat, actually even slightly declining. But that is one of the things that we should be watching as we go through this gradual period of increasing our debt.
Are there other questions?
No, we don't want to follow the model of the federal government.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yeah, I had been initially confused by trying to read this and read the item we just did previously. And what it boiled down to was I was trying to wrap my head around the fact that in calendar 2025, we're approving the 2026 loan authorization for fiscal 27 and 28.
That's correct.
Okay, and that was the part that was,
28 and 29.
I'm sorry, for fiscal
Right.
28 and 29. And this was giving us numbers for fiscal 27 and 28 that didn't equal the above ones, because that was not for 27, 28, that was for 28 and 29. So I'm straight on that. I think I understand Michael's answer in terms of how, as our debt gets older, essentially, it will move back above the 60% range. But if it is likely to take as long as 10, 15 years to get to that point, I'm just kind of curious why the target didn't adjust or accept that. Like, why wouldn't the target be, above 55% for the first 15 years and above 60% for the second 15 or something? Like, why wouldn't you split your targets if almost from the beginning you're going to be below? Because the target doesn't say around 60%. Prague may have said, we want you to be around 60%, but the way the target is written, it says above. And so for anybody who's not listening to that explanation, but just reviewing figures on a page, it's gonna look like we're not hitting our target, and we're not hitting our target for multiple years in a row. Is there any way we can put something in writing saying we know this and we know that's okay, other than just approving it? Because that's not gonna help explain it to anybody who's just reading it.
That is a very valid point, and we will take that to our next conversation with Prague.
Perhaps Prague didn't, if you remember those meetings, I really questioned their models. I remember their models.
They tend to use kind of standard metrics that they
Yeah,
just
yeah.
apply to every jurisdiction across the board. And you can certainly imagine for some generic jurisdiction out there how rushing out and getting twice the amount of debt you've ever taken out before without putting any thought to it is probably something to watch. But given how much thought we have put into it, yes, that's a great point that maybe they should, we should consider a little more nuance into the recommended level.
Yeah, like personally, as a board member, am I concerned that it is as low as 57.6% in 2031? No. I mean, if we know that if we know that the goal is to be around 60, I can live with that. But if that's the case, then we probably shouldn't have the target as non-nuanced as above 60%.
Absolutely.
Small percentage shortfalls on large numbers are significant sums.
Yeah.
But
But it's a shortfall to the target.
The point is well taken. I mean, the concept here is that you want to be retiring most of your debt in any 10-year period. And here we are doing that.
Yeah.
We're still well above 50%.
We're always above 50.
The recommendation is 60 to simply provide buffer. And this is, like we keep saying, something to be mindful of, but we are watching it very closely and maintaining still a buffer and some very thoughtful analysis, and we have a reason why it dips. It's not by accident, and an expectation that it will grow back. So the point is well taken that maybe some nuance could be introduced into these targets.
In my opinion, there are a couple things. One is this time each year, we're doing this. And then as we're voting on 2-year periods. What I'm hearing is if we were looking at the same illustrations 2 years from now, when we get to the years 33 and 34, you're hearing that the committee or the board is looking for that number to have shifted back towards that 60%
Gonna
level.
happen.
Which
It's
it
not
does.
much later.
In 33, it's 57.8, and then 34, it goes up
Yeah.
to 58.3.
Yeah, my comment was, what I was hearing is that 60 appeared to be the comfort level.
That's right, that's right.
Not-
And we're definitely hearing that. I think that it's important to keep in mind that that initial jump from 80 million to 125 million, which was very necessary
Oh, yeah, that's page
for the capital program of the city of Baltimore, and had many reasons behind it. That was the most drastic jump to our borrowing. From there, the percentage increases get gentler and gentler, which is why you start seeing these ratios move up at the end of this time scale. And they do get above 60 if we could just extend that out.
No, we're good.
Okay.
With your personal endorsement.
So I'd like to entertain a motion for the annual budgeted GO bonds for fiscal year 27 and 28 to be 125 million and 140 million respectively. Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you have your target. You have your target for 27. Okay, the next item is our annual TIF report. And so today we bring you the report that's covering the period of June 30th, 2025 for our 10 TIF districts: Belvedere Square, Harborview, Strathdale Manor, Clipper Mill, North Locust Point, Mondawmin Mall, East Baltimore Research Park, Harbor Point, Poplarton, and Port Covington. So if you go to page 3, it gives you a summary of our outstanding debt. It's around 351 million. And our assessed value is on page 4. The total assessed value is almost 1.9 billion. And the increment based on the development of the areas is 1.4 billion. So I'll entertain any questions you may have of the report that we presented you today.
And are there questions? And it should be a number of questions. Fred?
Okay, I understand we're all current and up to date on these, and there's no problems. But it seems to me that the East Baltimore project hasn't amortized any debt since it's been started. It's been refinanced, and now and they have bonds that can actually default on payments, but it won't be an event of default. Who owns those bonds?
For the 2009 bonds?
Yeah, it says, under the terms of these bonds, the deferral of principal and interest does not constitute a default.
Yeah, so the way the agreement is for the 2009 bonds, when we refinanced it, the 2008C and 2017 bonds, they're senior, and the other ones we will pay based on available revenue on the
Yes.
2009. So we're not in default. So if there's a.
No, no, you're not in default legally,
Right.
you're complying with the bonds, but there is
Yes.
no money to pay it.
Well, we've been paying their interest in some, well, on the 2009, we paid like about 500 and some thousand
Well,
dollars in principal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the charts in the back don't indicate, well,
Yeah. But, yeah.
So we really haven't amortized any of that debt seriously. In fact, it's increased, I think, a little bit. If you go back and look at the tables on the bonds, and it's,
Page 1.
it's much the same case with Poppleton.
Yeah, so we got, on the C, we got $6 million outstanding, 42. So, yeah, we'll start, well, this is the way it was programmed, that as the development
Here we go.
increases, it's finished.
Principal outstanding is
6 million, on,
69.
you on page 29?
Hang on, this one. I actually did read all these charts.
Yes. Mm-hmm. If our outstanding principal is 70 million.
Yep, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, it's 70 million. The bonds that were originally issued were 64 million. If you add up, see, the first three.
Yes.
So we're paddling water there.
Yeah, I think that the term is, I believe it's 30 years on that one. 30 years. So, as we move on we pick up principal along the way, yeah.
It's like a 30-year bond
Yeah,
with the federal
yeah,
government.
yeah.
And then, well, Poppleton is a much newer project, but we seem to be,
So Poppleton, they had their issues with development and construction, so they weren't fully leased
Right.
up to start developing increments, yeah, so they had some issues on their own, and then also they challenging the assessment of their
Oh.
property.
not paying any attention to the Sun papers, but just looking at these. Is Poppleton gonna make it? Come on, you know, you see. I mean, I remember the approval of that, it's just, and so do you.
Yes, yes, yes.
So why don't we have Keenan come up
Yeah.
and assist you as well? And that's not to say that you don't know it. It is,
It's
one,
probably not
one,
appropriate
the,
for this meeting, I'm sorry.
no,
I
one,
apologize.
the report is very, very well done.
Exactly.
And the information is, in my opinion, is pretty clear, which then leads to the board members asking almost anecdotal type questions because it becomes a what if. And I think that discussion is relevant. Each of us reviewed the information independently, but I can imagine that each of us have pinpointed the same projects for questions.
Beginning
And
with the first one, which is now paid off.
Good afternoon. My name is Keenan Rice, for the record. Just want to, if I may, make a few introductory comments. First of all, I think this report was a great idea. Whoever came up with the idea of preparing it every year.
Deserves full
So
credit.
the
that
city's
wasn't
made
the
a
full board?
Our work is a combined effort.
I know that. So the city has made a significant commitment to this TIF. This report addresses 10 TIFs. There's 11th TIF that will be in the report next year, and that's the vacant property TIF. And we anticipate issuing another $65 million of bonds over the next 12 months for that TIF. Currently, the city's issued over $350 million of bonds. It'll be over $400 million next year. So I think it's very important to monitor the program to see what's working right and what's not working right. And in a program this size and this complicated, there's bound to be some things that, it's not working exactly as anticipated. And it's good to know that, and lessons learned, and what can we do. I have with me here Max Levy, who I have to tell you did all the research and the work on this report. So if you ask too technical of a question, I may need to ask him to come up and help with that. But I do want to address a couple of the questions that were asked. First of all is about the East Baltimore TIF. Just a reminder, there were 2 series of bonds that were issued to the Annie Casey Foundation. And it's because as that project moved forward, they were one of the sponsors to the program, to that TIF to begin with. They put a lot of money into it. It was part of their vision and helping out, people provide affordable housing, redevelopment within
The
cities.
school, the kids got a school as a result.
Exactly.
That was the most important.
Exactly. And there's, and I think, that project has been flying, sailing into a strong wind, because you notice these bonds were issued in 2008. What happened in 2008? The Great Recession,
Well, caveat, at the time, Hopkins made it perfect. The argument was made that, of course, Hopkins will end up supporting this project. Hopkins made it perfectly clear, because I called some board members. They made it perfectly clear they were not supporting this project.
They were in their conversation discussions. But the money really came from the city and the Annie Casey Foundation. Now, 2 of those series of bonds that were bought by the Annie Casey Foundation was because they were putting more money into the deal and they wanted a chance to get paid back. We didn't have enough tax increment to pay them back at that time. We couldn't sell bonds because we didn't have enough tax increment. So they bought those bonds as what we sometimes call hope bonds. Or another more technical term is cash flow. To the extent we had money, we would pay them. To the extent we didn't have, the city did not have enough money, the bonds could accrue, but only to a cutoff, because you and the city council had authorized a certain amount of bonds. And your bond counsel, Gar Woods, had the opinion, which I think they were right, is as those bonds accrued, they could only accrue up to that level that you had approved. They couldn't accrue above that level. So that's one reason why you see the bonds outstanding is actually higher now than when we're issued.
6
because
million higher.
Yeah, there was some accrual that could occur, but it's not accruing anymore, okay? Because it reached a maximum, on the accrual there. On the Poppleton project, that project has gone through some difficult times. They had a leak, that flooded some of the apartment building. They were delayed, they are moving forward now. I do think the structure there is a good structure because we have the special tax. If they don't produce enough tax increment, in fact, they've already had to pay the special tax. I think there's enough value in that property that someone's going to pay the special tax. In fact, that property's already been taken over. The original developer no longer owns that property.
That's right.
The new party has actually reached out to us, to the city and to MuniCap, to learn more about the property. But I think they will stay with it, the property, because they have a significant investment, and the shortfall in the debt service is just doesn't justify walking away from the property. But if they did, I think someone else would buy it, because again, the value is just a lot greater than the special tax we have to collect. So I think it's a good structure that, it will go forward. It's been troubled, but I think it will go forward, and I do think those bonds will get repaid.
Are there any thoughts or anything we should know about Mondawmin?
That's another troubled project, and the problem there, unfortunately, is Target closed. Target was the anchor, and one of the reasons the city supported that TIF to begin with, it was an area of the city that is really underserved, and in particular, they needed retail, and Target was so needed for that neighborhood and that community, and it was important because Target brought customers, and then the other retailers, could create sales from the customers who came to Target. And so when Target closed, not only did we lose that value, that the residents in that community lost, a place that they shopped that was very important to them, but now the other tenants lost all those people that were being drawn to the center. So that, again, the structure is there's a special tax on the property, and the special tax has been getting paid. That future is more, in my mind, more of a question, because without Target, it's just, it's hard to see how viable of a project it really is. I know there's discussions and talk about what to do with the property. There's been discussions about creating some more community meeting space, which doesn't produce tax revenues or bring a lot of people. So I don't, I guess if there's any one of these TIFs I would be most worried about, it would be Mondawmin Mall.
Thank you.
I have to make a comment. Gave me a chuckle reading through these reports. For Strathdale, they spent $110,000 on reseeding. You realize how much grass seed that is?
Well, it's a lot. I presume there's some labor and other things like that.
The report is complete.
Yes, I know, yeah.
Oh, they budgeted 110. They only spent 104,814.
There you go.
I stand corrected.
So I will say, the city has a very good process to ensure an audit quality file for all the money that's spent. So it is very diligently checked. They have to submit invoices.
I think that's a great piece of
Yeah.
work.
And we commonly, for example, Under Armour recently submitted for a requisition for Tide Point, and some of the costs got rejected because they couldn't be documented, with invoice showing exactly what they spent. So it is, you're right. It does raise questions. A couple of other things, if I want to point out. So the TIF, all the projects together are currently producing an estimated $10 million a year in positive taxes to the city. And we're going to start seeing some very significant increases.
Should begin to ramp considerably.
Yes, exactly. That was the point. So we added some new information to the report this year in response to comments last year, and one was looking forward. So we added some information looking forward. And we're starting to see, in particular at Harbor Point, the tax credits are starting to burn off. And there's a lot of value at Harbor Point. And as those tax credits start burning off, it's going to be a lot of additional taxes. The other area where we're going to start seeing some significant increases in taxes is at Port Covington. That property hasn't all yet been picked up at stabilized value. You can see all the buildings there. They're open, Occupancy is increasing at the multifamily. It's doing very well. As that property gets picked up at stabilized value, we're going to see a significant increase in taxes at Fort Covington as well.
The property get picked up by whom?
The state assessor. Well, it depends. The real property is the state assessor. Other taxes, for example, hotel occupancy taxes will be picked up by the city. So there's some of the taxes will be assessed and collected by the city. Real property taxes, the property is assessed by the state, but it is taxed by the
That
city.
happens only every 10 years, is that correct?
No, the assessed values are reassessed every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Yes.
Again, I think it was a great report with great results that the city should be proud of, especially when you hear about everyone is scared of TIFs, but to see that they perform. And after 2030, we should really see a significant increase in.
So I will say, because we work on TIFs all over the country, we work in over 30 states around the country, and the city of Baltimore has a very disciplined, thoughtful process. In fact, I would say of all the jurisdictions we work on around the country, I really think the city of Baltimore has the most disciplined, thorough process. And I think it also has a very good structure for the bond, so that when we do have problems like at Poppleton, we still have a mechanism to collect the taxes we need to pay the bond. So it's a very good program, and I think you're never going to have a program like this that has no problems. In fact, it's the nature of TIFs. You're going into problem projects.
Correct.
That's why you're using a TIF, okay? Because they're not feasible without a TIF. But I think overall it's performed very well. It's accomplished a lot of good things for the city. And the purpose of these TIFs, we want to create positive tax dollars for the city, but that's often not even the most important factor.
Correct.
There's a lot of other purposes served by the
Sure.
TIFs.
We were
Any,
there with the first one, Belvedere Square.
Was that the first one?
Yeah, I was on the, yeah, so was I. I know every one of these.
Your memory's better than mine. I was around back then. But
Which just hit maturity in September.
yes, the bonds are now paid off. Yeah.
Maybe that's a sign.
any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Roger. Ms.
Okay.
And that was the last agenda item.
Okay. Our next meeting is December 15th. Is there any other business to be brought before us? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.
Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thank you.